The gorge had been making noises for 6 months, and Governor Gregorio Fuentes had responded to every one of them by the book. Because the book existed to prevent exactly the kind of catastrophe that happened when administrators improvised. First Contact Protocol had been standardized in GSC year 4200 after 3 disastrous encounters between human colonies and previously unknown alien species. The protocol was clear. Upon detection of intelligent alien signals, the colonial administrator will 1. Establish a containment perimeter, 2. Deploy automated survey probes, 3. Initiate information blackout to prevent public panic, 4. Transmit notification to Central Diplomatic Authority, and 5. Wait for specialist response. Gregorio had executed steps 1 through 5 with the precision of a man who understood that his competence would be measured not by the outcome of first contact, but by his adherence to the protocol that governed it. The containment perimeter was established. The probes were deployed. The information blackout was in effect. Central Diplomatic Authority was notified. Specialist team en route. Estimated arrival 30 days.
30 days. The protocol says wait. We wait.
The signals had started 6 months ago. Bioluminescent pulses from the gorge floor, 12 kilometers below the colony's foundation. The probes had confirmed an alien species, previously undocumented, living in the deep gorge environment. Silicon-carbon hybrid biology, eyeless. Bioluminescent skin that produced complex light patterns. The probes classified them as Tier 2. No spaceflight technology, limited tool use, but demonstrably intelligent. The probes also reported something that Gregorio filed in the section of his mind reserved for problems whose solutions were above his pay grade. The signals were getting more complex. The first signals had been simple: rhythmic pulses, regular intervals. 6 months later, the pulses had evolved into complex patterns that the automated translation software described as structured communication exceeding simple signaling, and Gregorio described as the aliens are getting louder.
Governor Fuentes, I'm Dr. Reyes, Xenolinguistics Division. I arrived ahead of the main team because your signal reports were concerning.
Concerning how? The containment is secure. The probes are monitoring. Everything is by the
book. Yes, that's what concerns me. She pulls up her data tablet showing the bioluminescent signal patterns. Governor, these signals, the 6-hour repeat cycle. I ran the pattern analysis on the transit here. The pulse intervals follow a prime number sequence: 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. Then it resets and adds the next prime. It's been doing this for 6 months.
What does that mean?
You should have listened to me then. What is the best course of action here, Soledad?
72 hours of silence could mean escape or total extinction. It's a dangerous coin flip.
Dr. Reyes, if I descend into the gorge Tau, personally Tau, without probes, without scanning equipment Tau, what happens?
Gregorio looked at the gorge. The golden shimmer of the mineral strata caught the planet's pale sunlight, and somewhere 12 kilometers below, a species he'd never seen was watching automated machines circle their home in patterns that said, in every body language the galaxy had produced across 10,000 species, threat, threat, threat. The book had told him to send probes. The book hadn't asked what the probes looked like from the other end. The Itzamn stopped saying hello on a Tuesday, and the silence was louder than any signal they'd transmitted.
Ready, let's go.
Soledad had spent 5 days translating the Itzamn's bioluminescent language. The translation was incomplete. Light-based communication carried information density that human visual processing struggled to decode. But the broad strokes were clear. The Itzamn were a cave-dwelling species that had lived in the gorge for approximately 40,000 years. Their civilization was old, stable, and profoundly peaceful. They had detected human mining vibrations in the gorge walls 12 months before the colony had detected them, and they had spent 6 months composing and refining a mathematical greeting designed to be universally recognizable. The greeting was sophisticated. Beyond the prime number sequence, it included geometric proofs, molecular structure diagrams rendered in light frequency patterns, and what Soledad believed was an invitation, a complex pattern that repeated at the end of every 6-hour cycle, always the same, always directed upward toward the gorge rim.
The probes are standard first contact equipment. The protocol specifies.
The protocol was written after 3 hostile encounters. It assumes the alien species is potentially dangerous. The Itzamn are cave dwellers with no weapons technology, Governor. The protocol doesn't fit.
Gregorio was a good administrator. Good administrators followed protocols because protocols aggregated the lessons of past failures into actionable procedures. The first contact protocol existed because humans had made mistakes, had approached alien species casually, and suffered for it. The protocol was preventive medicine. The protocol was insurance. The protocol was also written by people who had never met the Itzamn.
We were afraid. The machines Gagura, they're how frightened people look at strangers when they don't know if the stranger is safe.
You want me to tell an alien species that humanity sent military probes because we...
And then, the signal stopped. The monitoring screens went flat. The bioluminescent pulse patterns that had been Nexar-II's constant companion for 6 months, the mathematical greeting that had repeated every 6 hours with the patience of a species measured in millennia, simply ceased. The gorge was dark. The Itzamn were silent.
What does silence mean?
2 possibilities. Either they've concluded that we're incapable of responding and they've given up communication, which would be culturally devastating for a species that spent 6 months composing a greeting, or...
The gorge was 12 kilometers deep. The mining colony sat on its rim. The structural integrity of that rim depended on the geological stability of the gorge walls. Walls that the Itzamn had been living in, shaping and understanding for 40,000 years. A species that understood the geological architecture of their home the way humans understood their own houses could make a gorge rim unstable without any technology more advanced than patience and knowledge of where the fault lines ran. The protocol said wait. The protocol said specialists would arrive in 28 days. The protocol didn't account for the possibility that 28 days of silence from a frightened alien species might be sufficient time for the foundations of the colony to become unreliable. Gregorio looked at the dark gorge. The golden shimmer was still there, mineral strata catching the light, beautiful, indifferent. Below that beauty, a species was deciding whether the strange, noisy, probe-sending beings above them were neighbors or predators. The book had no chapter for this. Gregorio broke protocol at 600 on a morning when the gorge was silent, and the fern on his desk was the only living thing in his office that wasn't terrified.
How long since the last signal?
72 hours. 3 full cycles of silence where there should have been greeting pulses.
And the geological monitoring?
Micro-seismic activity in the gorge walls has increased 8%. Are the Itzamn causing it? I don't know. Is the timing suspicious? Very.
The protocol was clear. Wait for specialists. The specialists were 25 days away. 25 days during which a species that had been saying hello for 6 months was now saying nothing. and the geological structure beneath a 1,000-person mining colony was developing micro-tremors that may or may not have been natural. Gregorio had followed the book his entire career. Mining regulations, safety protocols, administrative procedures. He had built his professional identity on the principle that systems worked when individuals followed them. The book was wisdom distilled into procedure. The book prevented the kinds of errors that individuals made when they relied on judgment instead of process. The book had also sent reconnaissance probes that read as predator behavior to a peaceful alien species, generated 72 hours of frightened silence, and potentially destabilized the geology beneath his colony. The book had done all of this correctly. Every step by protocol, every action documented, every decision defensible in a review hearing. And the result was a first contact that was failing because the protocol never considered that the most dangerous thing about humans might not be their weapons, but their paperwork.
Dr. Reyes, if I descend into the gorge, personally, without probes, without scanning equipment, without anything that looks like a predator's toolkit, what happens?
You break First Contact Protocol Section 4, Subsection 12. You risk your career, possible criminal charges, and if the Itzamn are hostile, your life.
And if I don't descend?
You follow protocol. The specialists arrive in 25 days. Maybe the Itzamn are still willing to talk. Maybe they're not. Maybe the micro-seismic activity means nothing. Maybe it means the gorge rim becomes unstable while we wait for permission to say hello.
If you want to know what happens when a bureaucrat chooses a conversation over a protocol, subscribe to Void Chronicles. The answer rewrites the book. The descent cable system was designed for geological survey teams, a cable car that traveled 6 kilometers down the gorge wall, from rim to the midpoint observation station. Below the midpoint, the descent was manual, climbing cables anchored to the gorge wall. No one had gone below the observation station since the Itzamn were detected, because the protocol prohibited approach. At 3 kilometers below the rim, the gorge walls began to show tool marks. Not mining, sculpting. The Itzamn had shaped the walls of their home with a precision that suggested not technology, but art. Curved surfaces, polished faces, patterns carved into the mineral strata that caught the ambient light and redirected it deeper into the gorge. The gorge wasn't just a habitat. It was a cathedral, carved over 40,000 years by a species that considered their geological home a work of continuous creation. At 6 kilometers, the midpoint station, the bioluminescent signals resumed.
We must proceed with extreme caution. We will.
Still nothing. 72 hours.
Wait, the panel. It's registering something.
Impossible.
How do we answer?
We keep going, down, without machines, alone. In their language, approaching without tools means you come in peace. The probes were armed examinations. This is a visit.
Gregorio descended below the midpoint, and the gorge swallowed the last of the surface light. And the only illumination was the Itzamn's bioluminescent questioning. Light in the darkness, asking a bureaucrat from a mining colony whether he was predator or neighbor. The gorge floor was gold, and the gold was alive. They were beautiful in the way that things adapted to darkness are beautiful. Streamlined, smooth, designed for an environment where vision was irrelevant and light was language. Their bodies ranged from 1 to 2 meters, bipedal but flexible, able to move on 2 limbs or 4, depending on the terrain. Their skin was a canvas, bioluminescent cells covering every surface, each cell independently controllable, producing patterns of light that moved across their bodies with the complexity and speed of thought made visible. Gregorio stood at the base of the descent cable and looked at a species that had been trying to talk to him for 6 months and saw, for the first time, what his probes had been unable to show him: fear. The Itzamna's light patterns were rapid, flickering, the bioluminescent equivalent of nervous speech. They were afraid. Afraid of the large, warm-blooded, tool-using organism that had descended from the world of noise and vibration above their home.
Don't move. Let them come to us. In their communication system, stillness means safety. Movement, especially rapid movement, reads as predator behavior.
Gregorio stood still. The hardest thing a bureaucrat could do. Nothing. No forms to fill, no protocols to follow, no procedures to execute. Standing still in the dark at the bottom of a chasm, 12 kilometers below his desk and his fern and the comfortable predictability of administration, waiting for an alien species to decide he wasn't going to eat them. One Itzamna approached, larger than the others, an elder, perhaps, or a leader, or whatever role equivalent existed in a species that communicated through living light. Its skin patterns shifted as it approached, cycling through sequences that Soledad's translation panel processed in real time.
Failed.
Dr. Reyes-Cow, tell them we were afraid. We heard them saying hello and we were afraid because we've been hurt before.
The question landed in Gregorio's chest like a verdict. Why did you send probes before people? Why did you deploy reconnaissance before communication? Why did your first response to hearing us say hello involve scanning us for threat vectors instead of walking down and saying hello back? The answer was protocol. The answer was procedure. The answer was that human first contact doctrine was designed after 3 encounters that had gone catastrophically wrong. And the doctrine's fundamental assumption was that unknown aliens were dangerous until proven otherwise. Guilty until proven innocent. Threat until proven safe. The assumption was built for human safety. It had never considered alien feelings. The protocol protected humans from aliens. Nobody had thought to design a protocol that protected aliens from humans.
You want me to tell an alien species that humanity sent military probes because we were scared?
I want you to tell them the truth.
Soledad translated. The bioluminescent display panel produced a pattern of light that carried, in the Itzamna's visual language, the meaning, "We were afraid. We sent machines because we feared you were dangerous. We were wrong." The Itzamna elder's skin patterns shifted. Rapid, complex, then slowing, then settling into a steady pulse. The same pulse it had started with 6 months ago. The prime number greeting: 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13. The mathematical hello. But this time, directed not at the sky, but at Gregorio's chest. Personal, direct. One being saying hello to another being. The elder extended a limb, smooth, bioluminescent, producing a warm amber light, and touched Gregorio's environmental suit at the chest plate. The touch was gentle. The light pattern at the contact point translated through Soledad's equipment as a single concept that the Itzamna language expressed as a fundamental truth, and that human language required a sentence to approximate. Fear is forgivable. Silence after fear is not. You came. That is enough. Gregorio stood on the golden floor of a gorge 12 kilometers deep and watched a species that had been saying hello for 6 months finally receive a response. The response wasn't protocol. It wasn't procedure. It was a frightened bureaucrat standing still in the dark because a xenolinguist had told him that stillness meant peace. And he had trusted her, and she had been right. The specialist team arrived 25 days later to find a first contact already in progress. Messy, improvisational, conducted by a mining administrator with no diplomatic training and a xenolinguist with a bioluminescent display panel. The specialists reviewed Gregorio's protocol violations and found 7. They also found the most successful first contact in human history, achieved not because a bureaucrat followed the book, but because he had the wisdom to close it. The book was revised the following year. Section 4, subsection 12, was amended to include a new provision. In cases where the alien species demonstrates non-hostile communication intent, the colonial administrator may, at personal discretion, initiate direct contact prior to specialist arrival. They called it the Fuentes Amendment. Gregorio kept the fern on his desk. It continued to thrive in conditions where nothing else would grow, which was, he reflected, the only kind of leadership that mattered.